Toia te wakataputu ki te Moana māwai e tō māwai e tō mā te whakarongo ake. O ihu o waka tūruki paneke, home i e hui e, tā iki e. E karata tāmati muturangi. Kei te mutunga o te rangi te rerenga o tō wairua i te rā nei moi mai rā. Tātou kei te pito ora, ti hewa mauri ora, and welcome back to the Hui. Māori winemakers are redefining Aotearoa's wine story through whānau, whenua and tikanga. From the windswept vineyards of Martinborough and Wairarapa to the rolling plains of Waipara, North Canterbury, Māori-owned wine producers are putting their waina on the map, one harvest at a time. And as Warani Pereira found out, they are championing kotahitanga, sustainability and indigenous excellence, along with some innovative technology.
It's a labour of love.
I don't think people really understand how much goes into a bottle of wine.
Very much passion. We feel incredibly lucky to work in it and work with the people that we do.
Whānau, whenua and kotahitanga.
Just encapsulate that in a joyous glass of wine.
Essential ingredients for indigenous winemaking.
Cheers. Cheers.
Windswept Wairarapa, the heart of wine country.
We're quite tough because we've got to endure all that strong wind from Tawhiri Mātia. It's just constantly at us all spring.
Winemaker Janine Rickards works with the Te Ao to produce her wines.
We have these bright, delicious, fruit-driven wines. It changes and evolves depending on the season. So at the moment I have 7 wines released.
Her accidental winemaking career began 20 years ago while she was working at the cellar door of this Martinborough vineyard.
It was encouragement from Ātarangi. So I studied a postgrad online while I was working full-time for them. Did a few vintages. When you start getting into the science level, it's fascinating.
That fascination led Janine to France, where she honed her craft and learnt about te wā, a concept similar to Māori connection to the whenua, where natural elements like soil and climate create a wine unique to a specific place.
Over the 2+ decades I've been doing wine, no season has been the same. You're always learning something new. You're also using all your senses for winemaking, not just the taste, smell, sight, listening, utilising your instinct, which you have as well when you're out in the bush. And that's a learned thing, right?
It's her other passion that's helped sharpen her winemaking.
Nothing else clutters your mind because you've got to focus on breathing, listening, using all your senses to try and find an animal.
Hunting in the Ngāhere is Janine's therapy.
It feels really grounding for me. I feel like this weight off my shoulders and I can breathe again. It's a good utilisation of pest species that's damaging our ngāhere. It's delicious, lean, healthy protein.
She immerses herself in the whole process, from bush to table to sharing with whānau and friends.
Good to go.
Today, it's wild hare pie on the menu, paired with one of her reds, enjoyed with her mum, Robin.
It's all good. Some purple potatoes.
She finds something that she's, passionate about. She'll just go for it. That's what she's done with the wine. You can see it in her eyes. Wow, I could maybe try this, or I could blend this, or I could, she's constantly thinking.
I love that creative process and the joy it can bring, but you need to have the kai to go with it, right? Yeah.
Tiki Wines is one of the largest grape growers in Waipara, North Canterbury. It's barely recognisable from when Royce and Sue McKean first visited the site 20 years ago.
This block that we're sitting in here came up for sale. It was a sheep farm. It was 800 acres, and then there was a 100-acre block beside it. It was really more than we could afford to do, but anyway, a bit of a rush of blood to the head and all of that, and we decided to have a go at it.
We're really, really proud of how we've stuck with it, because it's been quite a journey to get to where we are.
Royce's mum, Hariata, was the driving force behind Tiki.
Even now mum's gone, still a huge part. Yeah, I think she's very much imbued through all manner of things we do and how we go about doing things in terms of the whole ethos or culture within the business. Like, a lot of it's mum.
The Tiki name is in honour of their tipuna Ngāti Uanuku chief, Tiki Tere Mihi.
I just wanted to make sure that it was all right with mum if we did, and she thought it was a fantastic idea.
Tiki is part of wine collective Tuku, made up of 5 Māori wine producers to promote unity, a core value of Te Ao Māori.
The idea was that as a group we'd be stronger than individually.
Yeah.
We just think it's really important that we see Māori business being successful. So we'd like to see all the members of Tuku to do really well and to grow.
That kotahitanga, rarely seen in the wine world, embraced in the Wairarapa too.
I love collaboration. I think we need more of it. Such a delicious.
Oh, it looks delicious. Look at the foam.
Sparkling Riesling.
Janine Rickards has joined forces with a group of wahine winemakers and kaupapa Māori researchers for her latest creation, Aotearoa's first sparkling Riesling named Mātiti.
The idea of it is to depict Mātiti's phases through the season, so some of the tohu or signs that we see across the different 7 phases.
We're all bringing our different skills and our different pukinga, but there's no way we could have done this without Janine, because she's a winemaker, right? So, you know, we need a winemaker. We're making wines.
Well, let's get to kaupapa. Thank you.
Drawing on Mātauranga, the Mātiti Ropu is trialling innovative ideas.
So we want some with the florets and buds.
Like this listening device technology used by researcher Mariana Terangi that records the sound vibrations to determine the health and happiness of these vines.
Tino harikoa. This Riesling is actually really heavy. Good choice, Janine.
I've loved working with these women. They just all bring different elements to the kaupapa, and it's opening my mind to a different way of thinking, and they're just fabulous humans.
These Māori businesses are committed to sustainable wine growing.
Your wastewater system will run in behind that.
Tiki's inter-row plantings help soil health and promotes biodiversity.
We bring in beneficial pests that help us with reducing fungicides and pesticides. We have to maintain a commercial viability, but we totally think that regenerative practices can help us grow a better product.
Right from the get-go, we sort of implemented some of the sustainable practices, just some things that Mum was into, and then in terms of kaitiakitanga as well.
Mātiti is Aotearoa's first BioGrow certified Hua Parakore organic wine.
Right now, with our soils being under such threat, the Food and Agricultural Organisation of the UN tell us we only have 50 harvests left globally in our soils because of global soil degradation. So one of the other things sitting behind the kaupapa is to really elevate the mana of our soils in Aotearoa.
We're not looking to the old world now. You know, we've got established vines, we've got very experienced people in the industry. We are celebrating our young soils and our credible weather, high UV, and I think we are in a transition phase to really understanding what we're doing in a deeper way.
Indigenous producers are battling the same global pressures with oversupply and declining wine consumption.
Is it tough running a boutique label like this?
Yeah, You're always pushing. It's a very competitive market, wine. It's very overwhelming for most consumers because there's just so much of it out there.
Still really challenging out in the international markets at the moment, regardless of if you're big or small. I think it's just a lot harder than it was, a few years ago.
It's Māori winemakers' cultural connection that's been their unique selling point, gaining recognition abroad.
Certainly having more and more traction in regard to that internationally. It is nice to see that there is those out there with a really positive outlook towards Indigenous cultures.
I have got a little bit of wine in Australia and I have sent a pallet to Taiwan. I'd like to see it enjoyed in New Zealand because as a country we export so much of our produce, in particular kai. And I feel like our own people should really be enjoying the best product that we have here.
Indigenous growers making the most of these vines for now, guardians for generations to come.
Being able to grow something that comes all the way through to the wine in the bottle, it's something really special to be able to do. Celebrate what New Zealand can do with our sunshine and our soil and our people.
Ka rawa e tēnā wainanga ne. But as the wine growers alluded to, economic conditions are tough, particularly on world markets. We take a closer look with our panel of experts after the break. Ka wete wete kina, ngā take ohanga o te wā. Our budget panel of experts, Chris Wikaira and Talia Rikihana, are with us on the Hui next. No hoki mai anō e ngai wiki tātātou hui Māori, hui ohanga I aia nei. We have our illustrious panel of budget experts soon. But first, let's take a look at the pressures our government currently faces whilst developing Budget 2026.
With conflict breaking out in the Middle East,
the US and Iran trading shots in the Gulf,
global trade routes are badly disrupted, sparking a fuel crisis for businesses and whānau.
Last month, it climbed into the record books.
So what's the impact on the overall Māori economy? So far, it's been on the up. In just 5 years, the Māori economy almost doubled its asset base from 69 billion to 126 billion. Strengthening and diversifying across agriculture, energy, property and tourism. But with precarious global fuel supplies, what businesses are taking big hits? Which are holding strong? And heading into the future, what will keep the Māori economy booming?
So to discuss that and much, much more, we have Talia Rikihana, General Manager of Te Whāriki Māori Business Network base in Whangare, and political commentator extraordinaire, Chris Wikaira. Ia koe rangatira tēnā kōrua. No mai. Thank you both so much for your time. Talia, what do Māori businesses want now?
Wow, that's a big question, to be honest. What I'm seeing on the ground from the Pākehī that I get to meet with daily is there are so many different facets to business, not only business here, but as a Māori in business. And business owners are really struggling to, I guess, pull all the pieces together. We're working inside an ecosystem that's never been made for us. And whilst we're navigating that, and Whāriki's there to tautoko in some regard, we're exploring how do we get into procurement pathways in a more effective way to deliver impact in the way we know we can. We're super capable as Māori. As Pākehī Māori, we can deliver. Give us the opportunity to do that. And so exploring pathways like that is certainly high on my radar at the moment, and for a lot of the service providers that exist out there, like ourselves. And so when I think about that though, procurement really is whanaungatanga. Right? It's how we connect, it's how we engage, how we understand each business. And so whilst we're doing that kind of due diligence with businesses on the ground, it's understanding, okay, what does your health and safety look like? How do we tautoko you to ensure that you get those capabilities inside your business as fast and effective as possible? Health and safety, procurement. I think right now with the cost of living crisis, you know, we talk about how do we get businesses to ensure they've got capital to get themselves not only started, but to also face some of the struggles that come up against us. And those are the really tricky things right now for businesses.
So what would you like to see in this year's budget to support Māori businesses most now?
Short answer, Māori ecosystem made by Māori for Māori. Long answer, we could sit here for days. But realistically, a consideration that Māori are not an afterthought or a side thought, that we're included in the building and the architecture of what's required for Māori business. We've seen for the last 3 years, I would say, so much defunk and stripping away from not only the opportunities through funding and different portals and opportunities that exist within those government entities to actually access mahi. What I would say and what I'm hearing on the ground is actually mana motuhake for Māori business. How do we stand on our own? How do we ensure that we can build this effectively, efficiently and impactfully for our people, by our people?
Okay, Chris, in a wider context, the government is saying that it is in a pretty tight environment dealing with global conditions that are currently inhibiting its ability to be able to deliver what it wants. How much of that is of its own making, or is indeed due to those international things that we are experiencing right now?
Well, I was just going back to what it was called last year. Last year's budget was called the No BS, Nicola Willis's No BS growth budget, and it was really on the back of a bunch of savings out of them cutting costs. And for last year's budget, that was them dumping the pay equity program that Labor had in. So there was $5.3 billion they cut out of expenditure there. We've seen in the last week or so where they're going to cut expenditure out of the public service even more now. They came into the beginning of this year talking about there's economic green shoots. The green shoots are coming. Things are changing. Interest rates have been staying down. Inflation had been kept in check. Then Iran happened. Everything now is out the door. And I listened to earlier this week, veteran Radio New Zealand business editor Giles Beckford said at the moment it's like everybody right around the world with their fiscal forecasting are flying blind in a snowstorm with a blindfold on. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Inflation is going to hit. It's going to hit globally, so that's going to drive prices up, probably going to drive interest rates up. There we've got problems. So these green shoots that are there, costs, Māori businesses that rely on machinery, if they've got high fuel inputs, That's what's killing a lot of small and medium-sized businesses at the moment.
Particularly on a Māori business focused on primary industry, right?
Oh, very much so.
So
Petrol and
everyone says when America sneezes, we feel the cold. When New Zealand sneezes, are Māori going to get really Māwiwi here?
Well, I think everybody's in this same boat at the moment, particularly if you've got to warm your business, if you're growing things. You need energy costs are high. If you've got distances to travel, that's one of the things with our people in the Taitokoro, on the east coast, places where you have to travel a long way to get anything done, that has layered so much extra cost on your business, it hurts.
So what are the realistic things you think are going to occur in this budget, Talia? Do you think there's going to be anything at all here in terms of support for Māori business?
Māori businesses are being really realistic. And if we look at what has been played out to date, I think from the outside, it looks like there's not a lot that's supporting us. My hope is that somewhere in the back there are offshoots, some green shoots would be great, that are going to support Māori business that we're maybe not seeing right now. Again, I kind of come back to the whole rangatiratanga mana motuhake, right? And I think while simultaneously we're kind of throwing the fishing rod out with the bait and as much burley as we can to try and see what we can actually get back there, there's also this kind of other concurrent thing happening where we're building it ourselves. And I think the more that we can ideally get investment into those service providers, those entities that are actually developing and building impactful results for Pākehā Māori, then yeah, we'll see change.
We're going to talk about investment. We're also going to talk about the wider Māori political context after this Tarokau e Huana e Ngaiwi. Ko te roa ngāke o ngā kōrero ohanga Māori e hare ake nei. We have more from the panel after this. Māori. No mai ono I oku mihi haere atu ana I tā tātou hui. We have Talia Rikihana and Chris Wikaida, our panel of experts, as we look forward to this Thursday's budget announcement. Talia, you were talking about access to investment, maybe even private partnerships. Let me put the question this way. Do Māori businesses have access to private partnerships or indeed investment opportunities? And if not, how do they get that access?
Whilst I was driving down from Whangarei this morning, I had a phone call with one of our business entrepreneurs who I've been supporting get a kaupapa off the ground, which is an amazing idea. She's kind of come through a really interesting avenue through Te Whāriki, and I said to her, hey, look, we only spoke a week ago. Where are you at? And she expressed to me she was really fortunate to have a private investor offer $15,000 into her business. Look, $15,000, small fry in the big scheme of things, right, if we're thinking intergenerational and mokopuna decisions, but absolutely pivotal in the position that she's in right now in terms of that kind of market research. So what I say that to say, there is opportunity out there. One of the biggest things I'm really clear about is how we communicate effectively as Pākehī Māori, as entrepreneurs that are exploring this space, so that those that do have the pūtea can see you, can hear you, and see the vision that you have for those mokopuna decisions. So private investment definitely, I think, is out there. Where? That's for me and the likes of us to be exploring further and further.
Okay, what about the role of iwi, who seem to have some access way into private partnerships, or certainly in some capital investment projects and infrastructure projects coming up? What should the role of iwi be, do you think? You're smiling at me.
Yes. So long as iwi have their... I think it comes down to hapu, really, and that there are hapu, whānau, marae, iwi decisions being made and voices being heard. If there is pūtea that exists there, no mahara mai. However, I know for Te Tai Tōkiro, a lot of our iwi are asset rich, and so how do we ensure that if there is pūtea that's coming through, that it's going to be effective enough for Pākehī Māori, and then yes, let's have the conversations and explore how we can do that as we build a Māori economy.
Chris, this is being billed this election year, and the election has been billed as a cost of living election. Is that true? And if so, what is the impact of any budget announcement going to be on Thursday in terms of the election in November 2026?
Oh, totally. Did you smile the last time you filled your car up with petrol? No. It absolutely is. Everything is really expensive at the moment. And that's why people focus down onto those core things. How do I pay my mortgage? How do I pay my rent? How do I get my groceries for my kids and all my mokos? Those things are what dominating lots and lots of family, not just at the lower end, in the middle class at the moment. Life is expensive at the moment. So in the budget, the government is going to focus on getting that core crown debt down, things like that. They're doing all right on that, but they're doing it by cutting lots of stuff, lots of what they call fat out of the public sector. One of the things they need to do is to show those international credit agencies that we're on the right path, so we don't lose any more status in terms of the international credit rating, because that makes borrowing money to pay for things in New Zealand much more expensive. So they're focused on that big end of town. So what are we going to get out of the budget? Not much.
Okay, so if we're not going to get a lot and not much, what does that mean in terms of the electorates and Māori electorates and elections in November?
Well, I mean, that's fascinating. The pundits down in the Beltway, down in Wellington where I hang out, they're saying probably still going to be a national New Zealand First Act, something maybe. Does the Opportunities Party get over the line and bring something a little more centrist to it? Because there's just not a big enough offering on the left-hand side of the fence at the moment. You look at the Māori electorates, Chippy has said, Chris Hipkins has said, we want to get those Māori electorates back where they belong. And you go, oh, okay, so if you do that, that's potentially 6 seats that you don't have for a coalition if they get consumed back into Labour. Yeah,
let's talk about that in real terms. Tai Tōkiro, feel free to jump in here, Talia. So what we know is Abraham Edwards has put his hand up for Te Pāti Māori. That was going to be interesting if Hone put his hand up at the same time. He hasn't. So we've got Abraham Edwards, Maria Menokapakingi, we've got Huhana Linden, and we've got Willow Jean Prime for Labour, right? So crowded.
That's a lot of vote splitting.
Exactly.
Where does it end up?
Yeah. So okay, who's going to win that one then?
You live up there, I live in Wellington.
Well, I think it comes back to, I guess, the key message here is make sure you're registered to vote.
Aye.
I know that there's a lot of kōrero around that fence sitting and, who's fence sitting and what does fence sitting even look like. What I say to Māori businesses is, and our people, is make sure you're ready. For me, I can speak personally for myself and for my whānau, we'll be looking at policy, exploring what policy looks like across the board, because that's what matters to us. But that doesn't mean that's what a lot of whānau will be looking at.
Yeah.
We're about people,
Yeah.
right? Relationships, communication, how we engage.
So excuse the pun, but policy trumps personality for you.
This time around.
See what I did there, Chris?
Yes, unfortunately.
Te ako ranga tira tēnā koro, Chris, Tali, thank you. Thank you both very much for your time. It's going to be an
Kia ora.
interesting
Kia ora.
budget. E mihi ana kia korua. Our thanks to our guests and to our panel of experts. Again, kia atia tamarama, kua tae kaua ke tātou ki te tōpita haka mutunga o tā tātou hui ai nei. Our thanks to all our guests this week, and we look forward to bringing you more of Te Ao Māori to the world next week. Until then, e ngai wiki kia mau ki te tūranga o te putapu Aotea. Hau mi e, hui e, tae ki e. Nā te puna whakatongarewa, te hui I tautoko.
Kia ora, nau mai haere mai ki tēnei hōtaka. Tonight, our very first political commentators panel. We have Mike McRoberts, journalist and Te Ao Māori editor at the National Business Review, Dr. Lara Greaves, political scientist and data guru, and Matthew Tukaki, general manager at Wātea Radio and commentator. To kick off tonight, what's the best news of the last week?
At the moment, I'm organising a number of events across different countries, including one in the kind of indigenous politics space, you know, between Australia and New Zealand. And we now have a great destination for any of these events, Brisbane, because we've all got whānau there. We've all got free accommodation. We've all got mates. It's great. Multiple people you can stay with. So that's been a positive for me.
There's always a pro. Eh?
It's cheaper in this cost of living crisis.
What about you, Matthew? What's your good news that you're going to share with us today?
Well, I think the good news is that finally we might have a chance to host the Olympics. I think we've got the head of the Olympic Committee in town at the moment who's Zimbabwean, and so she's got whānau that live here, so she's going to be spending a bit of extra time. So I'm going to go on a road show, a bit of a sales tour if you like, and I'm going to pitch wakaama and I'm going to pitch kapahaka.
Alrighty.
Because I think this is our opportunity to really get our gold medal count up.
Good. Globally hot, locally not. We're off.
Well, you should host it in Queensland where all of the Kiwis are staying anyway. So
accommodation.
They are hosting it, aren't they?
Don't be a party pooper. Okay, Mike, what's some good news story that you've heard this week?
The most positive thing that's happened to me this week is being invited to be on your show, Moana. Because, you know, when you look around at what has happened in media, particularly Māori media, where the hell is everyone? You're still here, and that is fantastic. So, tēnā koe.
You're going to get a lot more camera time tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you. Delighted to have you here. Now, last week there was an announcement around social housing, and it was described as being about fairness and about incentivising independence. Matthew, what struck you about that announcement?
So this is Strip Mining 101. What they've done is they've gone and taken a huge amount of money that they haven't gone and got from anywhere else other than poor people. So they're going to lift the rents or people occupying state housing and social housing now to then provide an increase in the accommodation supplement to poorer people, and hopefully that will help them with their cost of living. Meanwhile, those that they've taken the money from the strip mining part, they can no longer afford their grocery bill, maybe putting petrol in their own car to get kids to school or whatever it might be. So we've actually not achieved anything by this announcement. There's no new money anywhere. There's no investment in building any new houses. They're basically just strip mining the poor to give to the poor. So that old adage of Robin Hood is gone, where you take from the rich and give to the poor, because they did that at the beginning of their term in government when they gave these massive big tax breaks to landlords, and somehow that was going to trickle down and everything was going to be right with the world. But we actually haven't seen rents reduce formatively to those in need. But this announcement, my God.
Now, Lara, what patterns have you observed?
I mean, I know it's budget week or it's around the budget, so maybe it is that some of the kind of harder to sell points are coming out earlier, such as the public service and the stuff around social housing. But it does seem like we're getting a lot of negative kind of cut-based announcements. And that again doesn't contribute to them really, the government really selling that kind of positive vision for Aotearoa, whether it is like productivity and economic growth and free trade agreements or whatever. There's not that underlying narrative mapping on to what they're doing at the moment. It just does often seem quite negative and sold in a slightly strange way. So in terms of the like social housing cuts, the first things that you hear were like Willis misspeaking, talking about it being like winning the lottery to have state housing. And the other thing around like how much, I think it was Louise Upston gets in allowance, housing allowance. Same with the public service cuts. It was like the first thing we heard was they're going to use AI. And so a lot of those points that people don't really trust and aren't great narratives took hold quite quickly. And the government didn't really get out and sell them from like a basic political management marketing approach.
Is it the most important thing though, the way it's being sold or the policies themselves? Like, because the way they are being pitched are terrible. The first thing you do in storytelling is you look at the person, not the issue, and but this is, the way it's been spun out is just the worst. I mean, two of the worst election losing comments I would have thought you could ever make about, winning the lottery being in social housing.
And human capital.
Yes.
For the other one, for the loss of public service jobs. Are some poorer people more deserving than other poorer people?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, the way it's been spun or put out there, I mean, that's an affront in itself. So you don't actually get to see the policy or see the reasoning behind it because you're too busy, reacting and stepping backwards from some of these comments.
Yeah.
And the worst thing about it is, who's challenging it too. And I know that there has been negative press, but it just feels like we're kind of going round and round in a circle at the moment.
What are you hearing in South Auckland, Matthew?
Yeah, what we're not hearing is job creation. We're hearing a lot of negativity, you're right. We're not hearing anything about the economy or lifting the economy or stimulating the economy to create those jobs, therefore increase wages, therefore create better incomes. What we're hearing are one-liners like the lotto stuff, like $1,000 a week for Louise Upston. We're hearing things that are actually irrelevant to everyday people because they're being explained in such a way that it's glib one-liners and one-minute sound bites. Yet again, I say, and hopefully Mike, you'll agree with this, no one's saying, okay, this industry is going to be created, therefore these jobs are going to be on offer. Instead, what we're seeing tens of thousands of New Zealanders leave the country.
Yeah.
They're not coming back. They're young people mainly.
Those are the ones that can afford to leave.
Those are the ones that can afford to leave and also possibly have somewhere to stay when they get there. But from memory, I think we're on the cusp of seeing more people leave in this term of government than we did after the Christchurch earthquake.
Does that ring true?
Yeah, it does. And I mean, when you look at the numbers, I think it's like a point that Labor can kind of rely on in this next election, although we haven't exactly heard a lot from them either in this time.
And those are the people that can leave, as you mentioned, who have the resources and ability to do so. For the rest who are stuck here, everything that's going on just reinforces that apathy or that disconnection that they have with politics, that they have with the powers that be. They feel like they have no ability or opportunity to change anything, even with a vote in an election year, which is, that's really worrying.
We'll talk about that shortly. Just in terms of public service, so we know that, there could be around 8,700 people that might lose their jobs. What is the actual impact on the people whom they served?
So that's quite concerning, isn't it? Because it's like, where are those jobs going to be cut? Which ministries are getting smushed together? where is AI replacing people in reality? Where are they going to bring in an IT system? The reality is that IT systems, AI actually costs money too. So there's been a lot of experts in the press talking about like, hey, you need to replace people with a costed system with data that's not going to go overseas. So that part of the picture really hasn't been looked at and costed properly. The other thing, of course, is it's almost like a positive for me this week because I do the odd government contract. For a lot of people that are in that consultancy type space, what's going to happen next time there's, say, like a Labour government that comes in and they want to expand the public service? Are they going to hire all the people back? Are they going to have these contractors? So how will the state be shrunk? Are they going to try to like push these public servants into specific ministries, these consolidated ministries? There's not necessarily a vision for that.
Yeah.
And where there's not a vision, there's that possibility again that we get this chopping and changing between national governments, Labour governments. No one gets anything done because they spend all of their time repealing what the last group did.
Yeah. Mike, Rob Campbell, in observing those public service cuts, said it felt like the starting point was wrong. It's like, we need to get rid of 8,700 something without saying we need to first think about how we improve services, how do we make it more efficient?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it is run the wrong way. And while I know most of those jobs aren't in Wellington, quite a few are. And if you've been in Wellington lately, it's a ghost town. And I know people down there who are moving to Australia, you know, friends of ours. And so, like, I really worry that all of these things are falling apart, and where does it end?
AI.
Or Winston Peters.
That engenders another issue. There is no AI strategy. So it's like we think we're going to save some money doing it this way, but we're not sure of how it's going to work. So they've
even what it's going to do.
Or even what it's, so they've even cast aside things like the Privacy Act, privacy legislation, data sharing conventions between government agencies and departments. Now that would make sense a little bit if there was a strategy.
Yeah.
But there's not even that.
I've been looking at these AI LLMs and LRMs and all that, and some of the study that's come out has shown that when it comes to complex reasoning, accuracy just goes out the window. Is that your understanding?
Is this the first time on one of these shows I get to talk about Māori data sovereignty? Has it finally happened?
Yes. Quick.
Okay, so like seriously, that's the other lens that we need to put on it, because we've had like these experts, advocates the last decade, including iwi leaders, talking about Māori data sovereignty, you know, like our collective rights and interests in data. And, you know, all of these systems potentially then using our data to profile Māori individuals, collectives, sell things back. Or also in the government space, that risk of denying government services, right? Or the risk of profiling people a certain way, that predictive risk profiling and modelling, where people are targeted. That is a Minority Report, that movie was Tom Cruise or something.
The irony is, the good news story is the Māori economy, to be blunt.
Yes.
I mean, we're seeing a Māori economy shift and grow and develop even further without the need of government intervention or even support to a large degree. We're seeing our asset base grow. We're seeing the paper money side of things grow. What we're not seeing, though, is that support from a narrative perspective. Instead, what we see is a government crawl all over Māori kaupapa like it needs to be expunged, and yet over here is what, between 120 to 160 billion dollars worth of assets, worth of an economy, which is being ignored.
And a population age structure that's shaped like this, that was the thing that's also missing from a lot of the immigration debates, is that Māori are about the rate of replacement. So it's one of those things where,
I'm glad you said that, because this is the other
thing Tahu Kukatai highlighted that the other week,
The
right?
irony, the Stats New Zealand data was released the other day showing very clearly that the Māori population is about to get to 1 million. It's also very clearly evident by the Stats New Zealand data that the general population is getting older, therefore retiring, therefore they're going to cost more, and yet the Māori population is going to end up being a large number of the tax base, making a contribution to the very services that these older New Zealanders have become reliant on.
It just gets more interesting, doesn't it? See you after the break. when it comes to your research around the registration of Māori onto the Māori roll or the general roll, what did you find?
Yeah, so the main thing was that Māori on the Māori roll, the Māori roll is really, to some degree, an expression of rangatiratanga. Māori who choose the Māori roll do that to kind of represent themselves, their culture, their ancestry, and so on. That's the most of our people who answered that survey and chose the Māori roll said that. There was also this kind of data coming through of people that did get misinformation about the roll, didn't really know about it that much, didn't know that more Māori on the Māori roll means more Māori electorates. So that was the big finding for me, is that, that was put in place in the 1990s.
Yeah.
And a lot of people today, like still the majority of our people who did our survey, who were really quite educated, like almost half of them had university degrees, they still didn't know, that more Māori on the Māori roll eventually means more Māori electorates. Yeah.
Because there was a time, Mike, when there was only 4 electorates.
Well, yeah, that's right. And it was pretty much a default vote for Labour, right? So right up until the mid-90s. But of those who did understand, you also found there was quite a bit of strategic thinking around why they were doing it as well and how they'd vote, yeah?
Most of the story does seem to be that people who choose the Māori role are thinking about Māori politics. They want more coverage of Māori journalism and Māori electorates, and that came through too. And thinking about what the parties can offer, and are thinking of things like, where they could maybe maximise the value of their vote, or those sorts of points.
What are you hearing in your circles, Matthew?
Yeah, what we're hearing is that the wind, if you like, around Tornado, around Te Pāti Māori is beginning to dissipate. And in many ways, the seat of Tita Tukaro is going to be one of those examples. With the popping of his head above the parapet up at Hama Edwards, that's another person in the mix who's quite respected in the north. And so we're seeing probably a settling down of what's going on over there. I guess Māori voters are becoming more sophisticated in how they see these things. Once the noise begins to dissipate, they come back to the kaupapa. They come back to what's going to happen to my family, what's going to happen to my whenua, what's going to happen to my water, what's going to happen to me. And so in many ways, we're hearing intelligence in the discussion, in the debate now, a lot more than probably we have done before.
But Mike, what about young people? The young people in your whānau and all that, do you think they're ready to vote?
Oh yeah, 100%, yeah. But it's that, I guess, being part of a movement compared to, now having to look and go, well, who's the best MP for me to vote for, or who's the best candidate rather, and who represents me the best. So it's going to take a bit of maturity shown by the Māori electorate, I think, to sort this out come election day.
I remember back in 1990, I was part of the Don't Vote campaign run by Te Runanga Whakawhanaunga i Ngā Hāhi. And that was to register the non-voters because that was a political decision. It wasn't because they're lazy or useless. What patterns are you seeing now?
Well, I think that might have changed a bit with the population now, with rangatahi. I think the people, do want to interact with the system. We've seen that in terms of the submissions on the Treaty Principles Bill, Regulatory Standards Bill, and so on. The big question for me is whether people are then going to turn out to vote. Yeah. So I'd say that for anyone kind of watching, is that the first thing you need to do is make sure the people around you are registered and their details are up to date, because they're not going to be able to do that in the 2 weeks before the election this time around. And they're, of course, on which role they want to be on, because that closes off 3 months before the election. So it's time to just start having those conversations with the people around us, are you actually enrolled? And then getting people to turn out to vote and actually getting them to show up. That is when people can start to be strategic and they can think about those things like maximising their vote. That's where they can think about maybe giving their party vote to a major party or even a major minor party like, the Greens or ACT or New Zealand First or whatever. And then giving their electorate vote to a candidate who doesn't have a chance of that representation being cut out by a good party vote. I think there's that possibility there that Māori voters could be strategic, but the question is, again, who's organising that? I don't know.
Yeah. Mike, how would you describe the state and status of journalism as we head into the election?
Oh, it's pretty dire, isn't it? You know, like I've felt for a long time New Zealand media was, having death by 1,000 cuts. Oh, the cut that really got me recently was Mikey Sherman. I mean, I felt depressed. I felt absolutely depressed about that. Her feeling that she had to quit. To me, the motivations were pretty clear. And what that left me feeling was, well, who's next? You know, if someone raises their head above the parapet or challenges, government or a politician, who's next? And we've lost a really good journalist.
Paul Thompson, from the head of RNZ, just resigned. And of course, your program that you used to work with at TV3, that has struggled. Wātea has had its share of cuts. This is not isolated to Aotearoa, but what's the impact of that, Mike?
Well, from a very practical point of view, it's left a really stressed workforce. So they're still trying to cover, all the stories and fill all the content, but there's just so few people doing it. So the checks and balances probably aren't as great. When you're concerned about losing your job, that's got to have a psychological bearing on what you're doing and what you're saying, who you're challenging. I mean, we've got some wonderful examples in this country of journalists who aren't worried by that and do a wonderful job. But I think overall, and it comes at a time when there's so much stuff going on with AI. I mean, my image was ripped off to sell some eyesight snake oil.
A health thing or something?
Like,
supplement?
What the hell? And so many of those things have happened in the past. I thought, and then someone sent it to me. I thought, oh my God, that's actually me doing this thing. But there's just so much distrust and lack of goodwill towards media anyway.
I saw a research paper that said that 36% of people are more likely to trust regulated media. What do you think is the consequence of something like the Broadcasting Standards Authority being disestablished?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because what do you do with this problem, right? What do you do with the problem of there being fewer journalists, there being fewer content, and there now not being the Broadcasting Standards Authority there to regulate the content? It then turns into a bit of a Wild West type model. What do you do? So what seems to be happening is a lot of the big online social media giants have got our content as New Zealanders, as Māori, and to some degree are using it to sell things back to us. So at what point does the government take this sort of thing seriously? Then someone needs to present an alternative vision, but I don't know what the pathway to that is, other than, again, someone technologically innovating, whether it is some kind of Māori collective innovating or they're using tech to our advantage in some way. I can't see the way through and to improve democracy in this way.
And of course, Matthew, Māori media, which has always been underfunded, has really had to prioritise te reo in terms of so the journalism landscape has changed too. We all have to have these quotas to be able to access that funding. What's the impact been on Wātea?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, our newsroom has gone from 17 people down to 6. That's a huge cut. Wow. They also cut the radio news bulletins on the hour, and so I had to come up with a way of funding that for another short period of time through to the end of December. That was really tough given the fact that we were already on limited budgets, but the problem that we've got is what we're being replaced with. And we're being replaced with free, easy to market sort of content, strip line from a group of influencers online, whether you call them TikTokers or whomever they are. And, I come from the bullpit of Australian radio, right? So that was a tough gig in itself. But when I see the number of influencers now plying their trade on air, in the case of Mikey Sherman, that wasn't a news story that was broken by traditional media or journalists or journalism or even standards. That was from an influencer with a TikTok account, Instagram and Twitter. There was no ability for any of us to verify or validate what had been said. And next minute, you've got another journalist in the firing line because he's decided to respectfully not comment. And now he's the one that's being accused of not commenting and creating a thunderstorm. Well, no, the thunderstorm was created by a person that was not qualified. And so I think the dangerous part of this, including Pōtero Māori and Wātea in particular, and other news organisations, is this is going to be the influencer election.
Thank you for that perky note. What is one question you would like me to ask our political leaders, in particular, possibly the Prime Minister, if we get the opportunity?
Prime Minister, how much longer have you got in the job?
Wow, that's ruthless. Lara?
Oh, it's still, how are you going to protect our data sovereignty and our cultural sovereignty? Like, how are you going to regulate things like the AI, the tech space? What are you actually going to do?
Kia ora. Mike?
We keep hearing that he's ambitious. Well, what is that ambition and how does that fit in for all of us?
Well, we started on a perky note. Let's end on one. Pō Marie.
Not that we don't care, we do. Katu, aho, kanu, kato, katano te manawa. I just wanna breathe again. Nā wai te ka me pēnā hau, kia ka warawara e hapa me pēhara. Pure aroto kia rere te hā, kia tihei te Māori ora. Katu aho, kangu kato, katano te manawa. I just wanna breathe again. I just wanna breathe again. I just wanna breathe again. I just wanna breathe. Katu aho, kanu kato, katano te manawa. Katu aho, kanu kato, katano te manawa. Black pearl.
Ko te reo, te take.